Hi, good day, everyone. My name's Alex. Thank you so much for taking the time to attend our webinar today. I am Leaders National Trainer, and today joining along with me is Simon, who's the Product Manager for Luxonis within Leader. Again, a massive thank you for joining. It's a very interesting topic and very interesting brand that we're going to be looking at. And it's a very exciting opportunity for Leader as well. So before we get started, I'd just like to mention that this webinar is recorded and it will be shared directly after the webinar concludes as well. And you guys will be able to review the content directly after. The webinar is about 30 minutes long. One of the requests that we have is that you please post as many questions as possible. We love to see questions come through. I am not a data scientist, so I won't be able to answer all of them most likely. But with that being said, we'll try to cover as much of it as we can, and with the help of Simon as well. So please do feel free to post questions during the course of the event. We will answer them towards the end of it. And also do stick around. We do have an exciting prize draw at the end of the webinar as well. So to get started, we'll take a look at how Luxonis essentially came about. Luxonis, the founder had a friend that was injured on a bicycle, and essentially the way this got started was he set out to create a solution to warn someone about distracted drivers. So he started looking around for a solution, but found that they had to use multiple products from different brands. There was no single solution that did everything, and to exacerbate the problem, the cost and the price of this was quite expensive as well. So what they needed was something that was a all-in-one solution. It needed to be embedded. It needed to be performant, and what I mean by performance is feature-rich, and it needed to be able to process AI on the device itself. It needed to be spatial, and what I mean by that is the ability to see depth in the real world. So essentially for computers to see the world the same way humans do in 3D. And it needed to support AI or be AI driven, and it needed to enable computer vision. So essentially that was the requirements that they had to solve the problem that the founder was trying to eliminate. So what they did was they analyzed how long it would take them to introduce a product like this to market, and essentially for anyone else that wanted to do the same thing. So they analyzed the cost and realized that it would cost about $2 million, and it would take around 2 years to introduce a product like this. And it meant that everyone else had the same challenge. It would cost them the same, and it would take them around the same time. If we flash forward to 2022, the same thing can now be done with a device that costs around $200 and takes about 2 hours to set up. And that is thanks to Luxonis, and that's specifically why they introduced this product. So they decided to build their own product specifically as a result of this. And they noticed a massive gap in the market for robotic or computer vision. Which is why they turned this into a full brand and now have multiple products as part of this brand as well. So throughout this process, Luxonis discovered the potential for computer vision as well. They believe that most blue-collar jobs will at least be assisted by robotic automation going forward. And it's for this reason that it's such an important brand for Leader as well. We are now pretty much at the cutting edge of where this becomes a dominant technology. And over the next 20 years, we're bound to see this expand massively. So what the Luxonis product platform offers is a solution that is small in size, low in weight, it needs to be low powered, it needs to be fast to boot, and it needs to be Keembo ready. And currently the Luxonis platform does actually support all of this and the rest of the features that we're about to look at as well. In terms of the capabilities of the hardware, depending on the model that you go for, it goes up to 48 megapixel, up to 10 cameras as well. The devices are inherently low latency. And something that is important is they can actually measure their own inertia. So for example, measuring their own acceleration or orientation, etc. And some of them do feature built-in microphones as well. Luxonis have a broad range of devices available, so it really depends on which one you go for and what you're trying to achieve with those specific devices. Very important, something that sets Luxonis apart from just a security brand, for example, is that it supports the ability to be spatial. And what that means is it understands three-dimensional space, like I said before, instead of just seeing a flat image. They also have options for LiDAR, which uses light or lasers to determine the range or depth of an object. They can measure time of flight as well, or the time it takes a wave or a material to travel from a source to a destination and back. And they can also do structured light, which uses pattern overlays on the image to determine the three-dimensional properties of an object. And they can do object tracking through space as well. So Luxonis products can also be AI enabled. Their products enable stuff like neural inference. Neural inference, essentially what it is, it allows machines to take actions based on new information or novel information that gets presented to them, based on the AI models that it has learned. It can also do object detection, which allows computers to recognize and understand what's in its field of view. They also can support the ability to do semantic AI, which assists with the classification and recommendation of data. And another party trick is that it can actually do facial recognition as well, which we'll discuss at length in one of the next slides as well. So additional features include the ability to extract features from a scene, so feature extraction. It can do motion estimation as well. It can detect edges. And it can do stuff like optical flow, which recognizes patterns in how objects flow across scenes. Additionally, it supports the ability to do warp and dewarp images as well. So those are the features in a nutshell, but what else is part of the Luxonis product stack? Perhaps the biggest advantage they have is how open they are and how you can use their products. It's very much a project-oriented product, and as a result, you need to be able to integrate it. As a result of that, they have developed actually their own API, and they are working on a cloud platform as well. So they support various types of AI and machine learning and simulation options. They also have their own software and SDK, so if you want to develop your own software, you absolutely can. They have firmware, which you can potentially customize as well. And even the hardware provides a level of flexibility. So what are the use cases? Where would we actually use these devices? So I'm going to list some of the verticals and some of the stuff that I can imagine as use cases just off the top of my head. Healthcare, stuff like mask detection, checking if people wash their hands, fall detection, can all be done with Luxonis products. Agriculture, you can, for example, check grazing areas, check how full trucks are with cattle, automatic animal counting, stuff like that. Construction, you can, for example, say it should alert you if someone's not wearing their PPE, if they get too close to dangerous machinery, or if they fall. In terms of energy, you can do startup or shutdown sequences not being followed. It can trigger automatic alerts based on that. In hydroelectrical environments where dam levels get too low, it can potentially warn you of that as well. In terms of warehousing, we're actually investigating this for our own internal use case as well. It can potentially measure the size of a box and how it flows through a warehousing environment. For transportation, it measures, for example, if a driver is tired, or it can measure their lane holding ability. In retail, you can potentially check if a retail space has enough staff. You can check queuing times, and you can even check the mood of the person in the queue. In terms of sports, so sports, you can do player down detection. So for example, if it's a contact sports and someone gets hurt, it can trigger alerts, or cross-line detection and stuff like that. So really a million different use cases depending on the application that you have. So the product is extremely flexible in terms of what it can do. And you essentially have to come up with the problem that you're trying to solve and then essentially build that integration to the Luxonis product. So who do they compete with? Mainly it's been Intel's RealSense, but that's being end-of-lifed by Intel. We're seeing a lot of RealSense customers coming over to Luxonis as well. It's pretty much completely green fields though, so there is a massive market that you can potentially tap with the Luxonis product. So let's take a quick look at their hardware capabilities in a very quick nutshell. They can run virtually any AI model directly on camera, and that's something that is important to note about Luxonis as well. All of the AI capabilities that I mentioned before runs directly on the edge or the camera itself. That eliminates the need for an external PC or server to run it, which has previously been a massive pain point for trying to develop solutions like this. They support all the major encoding formats, so H.264, H.265, MJPEG, and up to 4K 30 frames per second. They can do stereo depth, so that is to measure the depth of objects, like I said before, measuring spatial environments. They are high resolution and high frame rate cameras as well, depending on what you want. They can do 2D and 3D object tracking, and they are very low power usage as well, which is ideal for industrial environments where you need to, or you have limited power capabilities, especially solar environments, etc. You need to conserve power as much as possible. In terms of the processor that runs on the cameras, well, the visual processing unit is capable of handling up to 4 trillion operations per second at an impressive 450 gigabyte per second. It also has 2 neural computer engines capable of 1.4 trillion operations per second, which is very, very impressive. And again, this is a tiny little processor that runs on the cameras themselves, and it's actually right next to a pencil there, so you can actually see the size of that. So tiny little compute module that's built into the devices. So as I've said before, they have a variety of devices to suit different use cases. Everything from just a single camera unit all the way up to multi-cameras with stereo depth and even wide-angle devices as well. These are all pretty much out-of-box solutions. So essentially, they are pre-packaged into a nice combined unit where everything has already been combined into a single device. You do also have flexibility around the hardware, and they do have different options as well. So some of the other devices that they have, for example, is something that is outdoor capable. So it is obviously important to have a camera that is in industrial use, be weatherproof, be outdoor capable, and be shock resistant as well. And Luxonis actually have cameras specifically for this solution. And importantly, these are powered by PoE as well. So depending on the power method that you prefer, you can go for either USB powered or PoE powered devices as well. So they also have devices that are more modular. If you'd rather prefer to build your own solution or to change out the sensors, you can potentially provide yourself with some options in terms of spatial depth, view range, etc. They have a lot of options around what you can actually build, and it's a kind of like a Lego system where you can assemble everything and build it to your exacting requirements. So in terms of the camera options, you can do grayscale, color, you can do global or rolling shutter options, and you get standard or M12 mounting options as well. So they do also offer development kits or development boards. These incorporate Raspberry Pi compute modules. It essentially eliminates the need for separate compute systems by having that Raspberry Pi compute module on board. And these are ideally used to build your own firmware or to build your own integration with the Luxonis Depth AI interface as well. So we'll talk about Luxonis Depth AI in a fair bit of detail in a few moments. Going on from there, so they also have a simplified version of their system on module. And essentially what this is used for is it's designed to go onto third-party systems. So if you want to use Luxonis' Depth AI platform on other hardware, third-party hardware, because Luxonis uses open standards, it can essentially be integrated to different hardware platforms as well. So if you just want the software capabilities of the Luxonis products and specifically the Depth AI products, you can essentially leverage their products as well. So really tiny little devices that can be used to integrate into third-party hardware. So we've mentioned Depth AI, but what is it? Depth AI is essentially a modular and open source platform. It's developed by Luxonis, and Depth AI is designed to allow users to integrate existing models and solutions into the Luxonis products. It was designed specifically to help customers and to help robots perceive environments like humans do. So Luxonis provides detailed documentation about Depth AI and what it can actually do, and it's publicly available. So you can go to the Luxonis site and you can get a ton of information on their Depth AI software. As part of the Depth AI software stack, you also have access to and can develop your own firmware. You can develop solutions that work with their APIs, for example. You can integrate open source applications. They do actually have a ton of open source apps already fully integrated for stuff like license plate recognition, gaze detection, face detection, a whole bunch of other stuff as well. And that is because it's open source. Again, it's available for you for free for you to access. And they have examples on their website as well. So they also have a full SDK, so software development kits, if you do want to develop your own software and combine that with the custom developed firmware as well, you can absolutely do that. They do provide you with access to AI model zoos, which is designed to help you train your AI. And they, of course, feature existing software integrations. One of the most notable ones there, obviously, being Android. So Luxonis is also going to be releasing a product called Robot Hub pretty soon. Essentially what that's designed for is to give you control over a fleet of their devices. Apart from just getting the ability to manage the devices, they're also giving you access to a huge library of applications and services as well. So the idea behind this would be to simplify access to their products and to allow people who are new to the AI environment to get a better understanding of what their products are and their capabilities. So instead of you having to build your own AI models, you can actually leverage some of Luxonis's pre-built or the open source AI models which are available. These are designed really for people everywhere from beginners all the way up to large-scale solutions. Everyone will be able to benefit from this. So Robot Hub is coming from Luxonis, and as soon as that is available, we will be sure to announce it as well. So Luxonis also keeps a library of existing experiments. So that's pretty much what I mentioned before. And you can use those straight out of the box. So as soon as you fire up the camera for the first time on your PC and you install Depth AI, you can use these experiments on your PCs. And stuff like face detection, a whole bunch of so object tracking, etc. It's already part of the Depth AI platform, and it's completely open source. So if you want to develop your own integration based on that, it's already built into Depth AI, which means you don't have to plug it in. They are Luxonis themselves are also very active on GitHub and Discord. So if you have specific use cases or questions that you'd like to run past them, that you can absolutely reach them there. They're very active on Discord. So if you have a specific use case in mind, you're more than welcome to reach out to them as well. I've linked through their GitHub and all of the various experiments on screen. Because this is recorded, you guys are welcome to grab that link directly afterwards and go check out some of the experiments that they have available. We've set up their cameras in the office. The experiments that they have just out of the box are extremely impressive, and we'll actually take a look at some of those examples. So one of these existing examples is using the spatial coordinates from Depth. What you'll see is as the person is moving around the scene or as they're moving their hand closer, it can actually measure the depth of that hand moving towards it. So you'll see the Z-axis going increasing and decreasing there, which is able to tell how far a person or object is away from the device. And this, again, it's built straight onto the Depth AI as an existing experiment, and you can plug into this and use it for something else. So if you wanted to, for example, check how far a car is away from a wall, you can potentially use it for that application. They've also got pre-built object detection examples as well. We've tested these here in the office, and it's actually very accurate. So object detection can identify objects and actually give you a heading for it. So it can, in this example, give you a picture of the dog and add a frame around it to say it's a dog, bicycles, trucks, etc. You can identify all of that. So and a use case that I can think of, if you want to see, for example, number of bicycles going through an area, you can absolutely do that. And again, this is just built straight into the existing platform. No development needed apart from the integration. So this is available for you to use. And again, because it's all open source based, it's really easy to start implementing this and using this for free of charge. Again, this is all done directly on the device. You don't need a separate PC to run this. The device can actually handle all of the processing and identification from the device itself. Yeah, so here's a video showing a perfect example of object detection in action. So as it's going around the room, as it's panning across, you'll see it identifies a chair, oven, microwave, couches, screens, etc. as well. Really intuitive, really easy to use as well. If you want to play around with the examples, it's again, it's included as part of the Depth AI, and highly encourage you guys to play around with it as well. So another example is face recognition. Important, it's not really facial identification yet, but potentially it can be developed as such. It can even do stuff like age, gender, and emotion estimation. So if, for example, you had someone standing in a banking queue and you wanted to identify if that person was getting upset with the length of time it's taking to get to the front of the queue, you can potentially do that as well. And it also has some more traditional examples such as optical character recognition, OCR, and license plate recognition as well. So license plate recognition has traditionally been an extremely expensive adventure. So as soon as you try to deploy license plate recognition on security solutions, because it was all proprietary, it tended to be extremely expensive, whereas this uses all open source AI-driven libraries, which again means that you don't have to pay for that. So this is a perfect example of spatial properties. So essentially what it's doing is a traditional camera would look at this image as a flat image. It wouldn't be able to tell where people are in terms of three-dimensional space. But with the spatial abilities of the Luxonis product, you can actually measure the distance from the person to another person, or from an object to a person as well. In this example, what they're doing is they're saying it's setting up an alert. So as soon as the one person gets close to the other person, it triggers an alert, which is essentially designed for social distancing. So a normal camera would not be able to do this again because it just sees it as one flat image. And some more examples. Pose estimation. So pose estimation literally tracks the pose of the person. So it's ideal for seeing if someone's possibly fallen over, or if they're in a strange pose, climbing over walls, stuff like that. They can also do hand tracking. Hand tracking might be a perfect use case for gaming to check if people are cheating, card counting, etc. And they can do facial landmarks as well. So that's perfect for facial identification purposes. So if you actually want to identify a person by their face, that is an ideal use case for it. Going on from there, that was some of the examples. Luxonis have a ton of examples available on their online documentation. Highly recommend that you guys check that out. I've only been able to cover a very small cross-section of it, so again, highly recommend checking them. So that was everything that it can do, but let's see some real-world use cases and where people have actually deployed this. So this is a customer example. The customer is called Greenzie. Essentially what they wanted was a system to integrate to their automated lawnmowers, and what they wanted was to identify areas that shouldn't be cut, or blades on or blades off, as they refer to it. In the example that they show us on screen, essentially there's a pathway, a manhole, and a stick that shouldn't be cut areas. So essentially the lawnmower should avoid that, as it will do damage to the lawnmower. Because the lawnmower and the camera can actually see depth, it can pick up those objects and can pick up that it's a three-dimensional object and that it shouldn't be cutting there. So essentially in this use case, what they've done is that they've told the lawnmower to only cut in the areas highlighted in green. The rest of the areas it should avoid will be blades off. Another example is a company called Cobra Vision. They are very much involved in construction. Construction environments, as you guys will know, are very dynamic. There's lots of changes, people coming in and out, equipment moving in and out, and structures being erected. So some of the stuff that they've built was to detect if people are wearing PPE. That's a very common use case, to make sure that they're wearing their safety jackets and they're wearing their protective hats and goggles, etc. And also they generated, or they built another system to generate alarms when machinery gets too close to objects that may be hard to see. So it's very difficult in large machinery to see stuff like poles in the ground, etc. So for that, they've actually set up triggers. So as soon as a piece of machinery gets too close to one of those, it can actually trigger an alert to the operator as well. And then there's another small company that you guys might recognize here that they're actually working with actively, and that is Toyota. So Luxonis has actually partnered with them and is working on the manufacturing side of their business, and some very exciting products in there as well. Guys, this is an extremely short cross-section of what Luxonis is capable of. Again, I can think of a million different use cases for their products. It really depends on the problems that you have. So this is a solution looking for products. I would traditionally say that's it's a bad thing, but in this case, it's an awesome thing, because it means you have so much potential and environments that you can deploy these types of equipment in, and it gives you the ability to see the world in 3 dimensions, which has been lost in in computer world, where we're not able to actually identify objects in 3-dimensional space. So with that being said, we are giving away 2 OAK-D cameras, and we're going to do that via a random name draw. Just the only note on that is that you must have attended this webinar. So if you did not attend the webinar, we will be redrawing directly after, but I will quickly break out and go to the wheel draw. So good luck to everyone. Hopefully your name comes up. We'll see as we spin it. So we've got 2 to give away, and I will quickly do the first one. So first one there, Chris, well done. We're going to be reaching out to you directly afterwards. Unfortunately, you can't win again, so I'm going to be removing your name out, and we'll do another spin. And the next person there is Ben. Congratulations, everyone. Hopefully you're here watching the webinar. Alternatively, we will be going back to it directly afterwards. So with that being said, we're going to now open it up to questions. If you have any additional questions on the product, please feel free to pose them through now. We understand you guys probably have a million different questions. If we can't answer any one of the questions now, we will definitely reach out to the team at Luxonis as well to get in touch with you guys. So one of the questions I've got is, could this potentially be used in a dash cam environment? Absolutely. It's quite funny that you say that. I live in an environment where I've got tenants parking next to my car during the day, and unfortunately I'm getting a lot of door dings, and what I'm trying to do is I'm going to be using one of the Luxonis cameras to use the spatial side of it to say how far that person is parking away from me, and based on that, whether it should record the event or not. So if they open a door and it hits my vehicle, yeah, I'm going to be recording that. So yes, absolutely a million different use cases for that. Even heard of people trying to identify objects along the side of the road that could potentially cause damage to their vehicles, etc. You can absolutely do that. And then we've got another question here from Andrew. Do LiDAR offer development support for these devices? So development support, no. However, like I said before, the Luxonis team do have a Discord available. So if you want to discuss anything with them there, you're absolutely welcome to. They do offer professional services to a certain extent as well. But really, it's something that with the documentation that they provide you, you should be developing yourself, or getting a developer to assist you with that. So the question on the cloud side of it, will the cloud solution be paid for? Unfortunately, they haven't released the details on the pricing or if it will be paid for yet. As soon as we get that information through, we'll be promoting that out to everyone. Unfortunately, I don't have that info yet. So very good question. When can we get a couple of units to play with? Simon, please keep me honest here, but I think there is a NFR offer available as well. I'm just waiting for Simon to advise.
Oh, yes, yes, we do have stock currently available. And look, please reach out to your account manager. We do have NFR opportunities. So obviously to get the cameras in your hands, play around with, and experience all the features that Alex has covered today. So yeah, please reach out to the account manager, and we'll be able to have the conversation with you.
Awesome, thanks, Simon. And then in terms of support, I think Simon saying, Max saying, take my money. Well done. In terms of the support, yes, we do offer a certain level of support. Again, we will, due to the development nature of it, we will typically have to rely on Luxonis to provide answers to the more in-depth questions. But it really depends on the nature of the question. If it's hardware related, Leader's very good at it. In terms of the software side of it, we'll typically rely back on them. But it really depends on the use case. And if you want to tee up a meeting with the guys to discuss a specific use that you have or project that you're working on, we can absolutely assist with that. Great. If there are any more questions, you guys are welcome to post them through now. Alternatively, we will be ending the webinar there. I would just like to again say a massive thank you to everyone for attending today. I really appreciate you guys taking the time out of your day. And yeah, with that, I think we'll close it off. Thank you so much. Goodbye.